Hi, I'm Adam Rifkin. Welcome to Trailers from Hell. In 1979, Stephen King published what would be his first bestseller, and it would establish him as the preeminent voice in modern horror. At the same time, across the pond, as they say, Stanley Kubrick was licking his wounds over the box office disappointment known as Barry Lyndon, which is a fantastic movie, by the way, but it didn't do very well. And he was desperately looking for what his next film would be, and he wanted it to be something more commercial. His friend and the president of Warner Brothers, John Calley, who was a legendary figure in the 1970s and greenlit some of the greatest movies that ever came out of the decade, like The Exorcist and Deliverance and Dirty Harry, as well as Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon, sent him the manuscript for Stephen King's new work. And Stanley Kubrick flipped for it and said he thought it was one of the most ingenious and exciting stories of the genre he had ever read. When King found out that Stanley Kubrick was going to be making his latest book into a movie, he was ecstatic. And thus begins the long and arduous journey of what would ultimately become one of the most enduring horror masterpieces ever filmed. Oh, and Stephen King hates it. The Shining. This is an iconic trailer, and although it supposedly was only gotten in 3 takes, which is completely unusual for Stanley Kubrick, it actually took 9 days to set up. In fact, every time Kubrick saw the doors open and the blood pour out, he said, "It doesn't look enough like blood." And ultimately, for it to finally be to Stanley Kubrick's liking, it took more than a year, from what I understand, to get this trailer right. As excited as Stephen King was at the beginning of the prospect of having Stanley Kubrick direct his film, he ultimately hated the final result and was very, very outspoken about it. He said that Kubrick set out to make a horror picture with no apparent understanding of the genre. Ouch. The book was also very personal to King because it dealt with issues that he himself had battled, like alcoholism, and he was very disappointed that Kubrick largely ignored those themes. He also wasn't happy with the fact that in the film, it's not entirely clear as to whether the ghosts are real or if they're hallucinations of Jack's psychology and manifestations of his growing insanity. King and Kubrick also never saw eye to eye on casting either. King wanted someone very normal and very everymanish, like Jon Voight, to play Jack Torrance, because he felt the character should be a good man who slowly succumbs to the forces of evil, instead of Nicholson, who he felt was already too associated with playing wackos and would seem crazy from the start. I think that the book is a masterpiece. And that said, I also think the film is a masterpiece, and I judge them both as entirely independent works.